There are times in life when the enemy says, it's too late, you've missed your window, you're too old, you've failed too often, you'll never bounce back. And that voice, it doesn't merely speak, it binds. It makes you relive every regret, every failure, every missed opportunity until you think the lie that your best days are over. But listen to me, the devil is a deceiver. Because the God who created you isn't done with you yet. If you've still got air in your lungs, you've still got intention in your life. The same God who resurrected Jesus from the dead can get you out of regret, out of shame, out of delay, and get your feet back on the path He planned for you. Someone who is watching this today, you need to know it's not too late. Too late is one of the most powerful lies that you can ever embrace, because it not only takes a shot at your circumstances, it takes a shot at your hope. When you begin telling yourself it's too late, you no longer even attempt. You give up on dreaming. You give up on hoping. You give up on progressing, because you've talked yourself out of believing that the window is still open. That voice that speaks too late isn't born out of truth. It's born out of fear. It's born out of comparison. It's born out of the enemy attempting to immobilize you before you've ever taken an action. And the absurd part is, it generally doesn't sound like a lie, because it clothes itself in reason. You consider your age, your choices, the time you've lost, and the chances you've missed, and the thought arises, it's too late. But the thing is, if you accept that lie, you will start to live under what God has already made possible for you. The lie of too late is insidious. It appears in the whisper. You're scrolling through the photos of someone else's accomplishment, and you're thinking, I should have done that a long time ago. It appears when you overhear someone younger or more skilled doing something you thought you were meant to do, and you say to yourself, I missed my moment. It appears when you glance at the calendar and it seems that your life has already been scripted, and there is no possibility to alter the conclusion. But each time you say to yourself too late, you are saying over your life something that God never said. You are inserting a period where God still has a comma. You are planting seeds that never should have died. That voice that says it's too late is trying to get you to give up before you even get a glimpse of what is still possible and what's threatening. When too late becomes who you are, when you don't merely believe it's too late for a season or a fleeting moment, you begin living like it's too late for always. You say it's too late for me to begin again. It's too late for me to recover. It's too late for me to pursue that dream. It's too late for me to repair this relationship. But let me remind you of something. If it were too late, you wouldn't be here anymore. The very fact that you made it through this morning means God hasn't finished with you yet. The very fact that breath is still in your lungs means God still has something for you to do. Too late is not a fact, it is a lie. And the moment you begin to see it for what it is, you begin to take back your hope. You see, God doesn't check clocks or calendars like we do. His timing is not bound to your schedule. His power is not constrained by your timelines. You glance at the clock and say, I'm short of time. God glances at the same clock and says, I am time. You glance at the calendar and say, it should have occurred by now. God glances at the same calendar and says, I make everything beautiful in its time. We count our lives in years, in decades and seasons, but God does not count like that. He sees the end from the beginning. He sees how to bring together at a moment things you believed would take a lifetime to bring together. You feel like you've wasted years, but God can redeem years in seconds. You feel like you blew your time, but God can come along and make a new time you never anticipated. We look at time from our own little vision. When we say it's too late, we're stating according to my years, according to what I perceive, according to how much time has elapsed, it can't happen now. But God is beyond our vision. What feels like a delay to us is not a delay to Him. It's preparation. What feels like lost time to us is not lost time to Him. It's training ground. What feels like wasted years to us is not wasted years to Him. It's foundation. He is not constrained by the years on your calendar. He is not rushing to meet your deadline. He is writing your life with precision, and He knows how to make every season, even the ones you wished were wasted, work for your good. The threat of too late is that it causes you to live as though God's hands are tied by your failures. But the reality is, he is not hindered by the years wasted. He is not restricted by the turns you took in the wrong direction. He is not grieved by the doors that shut on you. He is God, and what that means is that he can redeem what you lost, restore what you missed, and rewrite what you thought was done. You might believe the clock has run out, but he is the one who resets the clock. You can consider the calendar to be full, but he is the one who finds space for miracles in the margins. Consider this: so many stories in the Bible were too late. Abraham and Sarah believed it was too late to have children. Moses believed it was too late to lead at the age of 8. Lazarus was gone, deceased in a tomb for 4 days, and everyone believed it was too late for him to be revived. But every single instance, God intervened and showed that what appeared too late to man was right on time for him. That's the same God operating in your life. If he wasn't too late for them, he's not too late for you. That's why you cannot allow the voice of too late to dictate your next steps. Because when you do, you begin living from fear rather than faith. You freeze up because you believe your time has run out. But God's time does not run out. His promises do not have an expiration date. His plans do not deplete. His love does not fail. And when you put your thinking in line with his, you begin to realize that too late is not in his vocabulary. The idea that it's too late isn't only a blow against your now, it's an effort to put blinders on you to your future. When you buy the lie that your best days are behind you, you simultaneously shut yourself off from the possibility of your greatest days being still ahead. You begin to live as if the story is finished, though you're still in the middle of the chapter. That's how perilous this way of thinking is. Not only does it steal from you joy in the present, it steals from you vision for the future. Because when you can no longer envision a future that is worth fighting for, you accept survival. You begin to drift rather than decide. You begin to lower your expectations in order not to be disappointed. You cease to pray big prayers because you don't want to be disappointed once more. But here is the reality. Your future does not hinge on how long you believe you have wasted. Your future is not revoked due to your past. Your future is in God's hands, and he is the one who makes new all things. When you tell yourself that it's too late, you are passing judgment on your life that you don't have the authority to do. You're not the writer of your own story. You're not the one who controls what happens, and you're not the one who dictates the timeline. So how can you say it's too late when the author has not laid down his pen? You are prematurely judging something. You're claiming it's too late from limited knowledge, but God knows the entire picture. You're claiming it's too late because you observe all the time that has lapsed, but God observes how much he can accomplish in an instant. You're claiming it's too late because you observe shut doors, but God observes the doors he is going to open. Each time you believe it's too late, you're selling short what God can still do with your life. We sometimes get delay confused with denial. Simply because it hasn't arrived yet does not mean it won't. Simply because it arrived later than you expected doesn't mean it's dead. Simply because the journey has been sluggish doesn't mean the promise isn't very much alive. Consider how often individuals in the Bible had to wait. Joseph dreamed dreams as a teen, but he waited years in prisons and pits before it came true. David was made king, but he waited years in hiding places and caves before he ever got to wear the crown. The waiting periods were like seasons lost, but they were seasons of preparation. So when you tell me it's too late, you could very well be standing in front of the exact thing God has been getting you ready for. The thing is, when you let too late root itself in your spirit, you begin to sabotage yourself. You no longer show up fully because you've already determined the opportunity passed. You no longer give your best because you believe your best doesn't count anymore. You lose faith that God will move because you've already conceded. That's the problem with this way of thinking. It not only tricks you into believing a lie about your timeline, it takes away your energy, your focus, and your faith. You find yourself stuck in a pattern of regret, going over everything you wish you'd done differently, rather than waking up to what you still can do today. Regret will always power the lie of too late. You glance back on the years you spent in the wrong relationship, and you consider it too late to get the right one. You glance back on the career choices you didn't have, and you consider it too late to make something worthwhile. You glance back on the things you did wrong, and you consider it too late for redemption. But regret is a trap. Regret will always seek to bind you to the past so that you cannot move forward into the future. And here's the catch. God already knew the errors you would commit when He called you. He accounted for them. He took the detours, the wrong turns, and the wasted years into consideration. So when you tell me it's too late due to regret, you are dismissing the very grace God has already given you. That's why you can't live your life reliving the past. You need to learn to let it go. Let go of the regret. Let go of the mistakes. Let go of the time you feel like you wasted. Because as long as you're clinging to regret, you can't accept the new thing God wants to place in your hands. Regret has you facing back, but faith has you facing forward. Regret has you a slave, but faith frees you. Regret tells you it's too late, but faith tells you with God it's never too late. The enemy prefers to employ time as a weapon against you. He realizes that if he can get you to believe that the clock ran out, you'll quit running in your life. He realizes that if he can get you to look at the calendar long enough, you'll quit thinking that God can redeem it. But the reality is, God isn't afraid of time. He made it. He governs it. He can stop it, turn it back, redeem it, speed it up, or amplify it. He can cause one day of blessing to outlast 1,000 days of effort. He can accomplish in an instant what you might have accomplished in 10 years. And that means it's not too late for you, not too late for your dream, not too late for your destiny, not too late for your healing, not too late for your breakthrough. And the next time the idea creeps up, it's too late. You need to see it for what it is, an attack meant to rob you of your fight. Because the fact is, if you're still breathing, you're still on time. You might feel in the rear, but God can catch you up. You might feel behind schedule, but God can move you up. You might think you've wasted years, but God will restore what was lost. And when you begin to realize that, you'll quit bowing to the lie of too late and begin living by faith that the best is yet to come. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens a human heart can bear. It doesn't merely whisper, it screams. It doesn't just hang around in the background. It accompanies you into each new season, each new opportunity, each new relationship. It makes you question yourself before you even begin. You rehash the decisions you made, the things you said, the doors that were not walked through, the time you believed was lost. And regret makes you think that what might have been will never be. And once regret has hold of you, it begins to join forces with another lie, the lie that it's too late. The enemy employs regret as a chain. He keeps you tied to a past that you cannot alter, so that you will lose the future that you still possess. That is why regret is so dangerous. It passes itself off as reflection, but in fact, it's imprisonment. It makes you believe that going over the past is beneficial, but it just serves to keep you away from getting the opportunities still alive today. Each time you sit in regret, you're not only dwelling on what failed, you're reinforcing a lie that your errors have greater strength than God's grace. Regret murmurs, if only you had done it differently, then you wouldn't be here. But grace declares, even though you did it wrong, God can still redeem it. The distinction between regret and grace is that regret gazes back in condemnation, yet grace gazes back in redemption. Regret desires for you to continue looking at the shut door, but grace directs you toward the open door that is still there. Regret holds you prisoner in shame, but grace raises your head and reminds you that you are forgiven, covered, and called. Consider how many times regret causes you to downplay the redemptive power of God. You glance at the years that you believe were lost to you, and you suppose God can't get them back. You glance at the relationships that broke and disintegrated, and you suppose God can't mend your heart. You see the doors you didn't get to walk through, and you think God can't open new ones. What if the years you felt were lost were actually preparing you for what's ahead? What if the heartbreak you felt disqualified you from something was actually getting you ready to love more? What if the doors that shut were not consequences, but safeguards? Regret will never make you think otherwise, because regret is a skill that only knows how to blame. Grace, on the other hand, shows you the truth that God already accounted for your failures before you ever made them. He already had the detours in mind. He already knew the wrong turns. He already had a plan to redeem it. Regret will keep you in the loop of should have. I should have said yes. I should have said no. I should have waited. I should have moved sooner. And next thing you know, you're in the world of should have and not the world of still can. Because so long as you are breathing, you still can. You still can build. You still can dream. You still can believe. You still can trust. Regret attempts to rob you of that truth by exaggerating what you've lost and downplaying what remains. It attempts to make you feel that the past was your sole opportunity, when actually God can create a new beginning at any time. That's why you can't let regret get to speak the loudest voice in your life. If regret becomes your theme song, then the deception of too late is your reality, because regret always results in resignation. When you tell yourself it's too late, you no longer show up, you no longer try, you no longer fight. And that is precisely what the enemy desires, your laying down of your future at the altar of your past. But you don't have to give in to regret. You can redefine it. You can allow regret to remind you of what you learned rather than life you lost. You can allow regret to propel you into wisdom rather than to lead you to despair. This is why it's so important to understand that regret is not supposed to be a home. You're not supposed to reside there. You're supposed to learn. But we erect so many homes there. We furnish them with memories. We put up photographs of what used to be on the walls, and we inhabit a reality that traps us in. The danger in dwelling in regret is that it takes over your identity. You begin to perceive yourself as the sort of person who always misses out on the moment, always fails, always gets things wrong. But you are not what you regret. You are not your sin. You are not your lost chance. You are a child of God, and your true identity lies in His grace, not your regret. The risk of carrying around regret is that it blinds you to vision. When your eyes are blinded by what you can't alter, they cannot see what God still desires to do. Regret blinds you to possibility. It causes you to think that because once you failed again and again, you'll fail again. Because once you blew it, once again, you'll blow it again. Because once you screwed up, once more, you'll screw up again. But that's not necessarily so. Regret doesn't have to be your prophecy. Regret doesn't get to script what's next. Only God does. And this is when the link to the lie of too late comes into view. Regret spurs the idea that time has already expired. You glance at your age, and regret tells you it's too late to begin anew. You glance at the years gone by, and regret tells you it's too late to restore. You glance at the failures accumulated, and regret tells you it's too late to rebound. The reality, though, is God is not time-bound like us. He doesn't see your age, your timeline, your history, and say it's too late. He says, I can repair, I can redeem, I can revive. So when regret is tempting you to quit, you must remind yourself that God's grace is greater than your biggest regret. His mercy is more powerful than your failure. His might is greater than your past. And as long as He is holding your hand, it is never too late to witness His promise come true. Fear of failure is the most paralyzing force that can seize your heart. It doesn't just make you hesitate, it makes you shrink. It makes you withdraw from opportunities, relationships, risks, and dreams. because the chance of failing seems heavier than the chance of succeeding. Failure is this giant in your mind, inflated, so great that it casts a shadow over the very real opportunity God has set before you. Fear of failure tells you that if you do attempt it and it fails, you'll be seen as weak, unable, or unworthy. So you don't move forward, you remain static. You assure yourself that safety is wisdom when in fact it is slavery. The reality is, failure is not final. Failure is not fatal. Failure is not the end unless you choose to end it there. Fear of failure deceitfully makes you think that one time of failing implies that you will always fail. One setback eliminates you for life, but that is a false statement. Every single individual who has ever done anything worth doing has experienced failure, and not merely once. The disparity isn't that they never fell, it's that they would not stay down. Fear tends to inflate the price of failure and diminish the price of obedience. It is like looking through a negative lens where all the ways that things might not work out are magnified before your eyes. But you never see how God can take those very bad turns and use them to instruct you, expand you, and position you for something better. Consider this: some of the best learning in your life wasn't from winning, but from failing. Some of the greatest development you've ever had wasn't from easy times, but from storms that blew you off your feet. Failure, yielded to God, is fuel. It's training ground. It's wisdom. But fear doesn't want you to notice that, because if you did, you would quit running from failure and begin running toward growth. The fear of failure also knows how to mute your voice. You keep your ideas, your dreams, your gifts locked up because you fear they won't be heard. You fear they won't stack up. You fear people will judge you or reject you. And in the process, you deny the world what God placed within you to be a blessing to them. Fear tells you that silence is safer, but what it actually does is bury your purpose. When you make decisions based on fear, you begin living below the level of calling God designed you for. You accept survival rather than rising into significance. You shrink when you were made to shine. But here's the truth. Failure is not something you should dread. It is something you should anticipate. Not because you're predestined to make mistakes every time, but because failure is an organic part of growth. A baby who is learning to walk doesn't do it perfectly the first time. They fall, they stumble, they wobble, but with each step, with each fall, with each try is progress. No one sees a toddler trip and says, well, I suppose walking isn't for them. But that's precisely what fear of failure causes us to do. We trip once and we declare ourselves out. We stumble at one thing and we write off ever being able to move ahead. But God doesn't disqualify you due to a fall. He uses it to make your legs strong for what's ahead. The fear of failure is so damaging because it's pride-based. At the core, you're not terrified of failing. You're terrified of being a failure. You're terrified of other people's opinion, of what they'll say, of how they'll perceive you. But here's the thing, people are going to talk anyway. If you succeed, they'll talk. If you fail, they'll talk. So why would you allow what others think to prevent you from entering obedience to God? Their judgment can't negate God's calling. Their criticism can't retract God's plan. Their opinions don't define your identity. When you refuse to live for the approval and begin to live from purpose, failure becomes less painful. Fear of failure always attempts to trap you in the what if. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I waste my time? But you have to reverse the question. What if God shows up? What if the risk you take opens the door to something bigger than you ever dreamed? What if your act of obedience is the very thing that inspires someone else to keep going? What if your courage to walk out even if you trip is the breakthrough for somebody else? You'll never know the solution to those what ifs if fear of failure holds you captive. And this becomes the lie that it's too late to start anew. Once fear of failure has accomplished its mission, it convinces you that since you've fallen earlier, it won't be worth trying again. It informs you that the window of opportunity is no longer open. It informs you that you've already spent too much time. It informs you that your time passed, and now you simply have to endure the burden of what might have been. But the enemy is a deceiver. While you still breathe, it's not too late. God is the creator of second chances. He doesn't merely offer you a second chance. He offers you 70 times 7. He doesn't merely give back what was taken from you. He multiplies what you have. He doesn't merely redeem wasted time. He makes the time you have left even more meaningful. Consider those individuals in the Bible who believed it was too late. Moses ascribed it to be too late when he lived 40 years in the wilderness, but God ordained him to take a nation at the age of 80. Sarah considered it being too late when she was beyond her 9th month of bearing children, but God blessed her with a son of promise. The thief on the cross believed that it was too late, but at his last gasp, Jesus told him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." If God could do it for them, He can do it for you. It is not too late to dream again. It is not too late to rebuild. It is not too late to trust again, to love again, to try again. The too late lie is so strong because it is accompanied by shame. It does not simply inform you that time has passed. It informs you that you squandered it, and now you don't get a second chance. But grace shatters that lie. Grace tells you that your past does not exclude you. Grace tells you that your failures do not determine you. Grace tells you that your clock is not running out because God winds the clock. He is the one who can speed up your progress, who can redeem your blunders, who can place you for purpose even when you're sure you're behind. What appears tardy to you is on schedule to Him. So choose, will you trust the voice of fear, or will you trust the voice of faith? Will you remain trapped in the falsehood that failure is absolute and time's up, or will you step into the reality that God is still penning your story? The spirit of fear would like to immobilize you, but faith would like to push you forward. The deception of too late would like to bind you, but God's promise would like to liberate you. The decision is yours, and the door is open. All the fears you've been carrying, fear of failure, burden of shame, the deception that your time has expired, God is removing it from you this moment. What appeared to be a grave is really a womb for something new. What seemed to be the end is merely the midpoint. You might have lost your way, but you're not stuck. You might have lost time, but God is the time redeemer. Your failure fears don't describe you. God's grace does. The deception of too late doesn't hold you. God's promise releases you. And today you don't have to remain bound by yesterday. You can move into tomorrow with courage, because the Lord is reauthoring your story. Don't believe the lie, it's not too late. God is not finished, and your future is still in His hand.